Well, as the deadline approaches, the U.S. and Israel are launching a new wave of attacks across Iran.
So far, strikes have been reported on multiple bridges, killing at least 2 people, according to Iran state media. In response to these new rounds of attacks, Iranian officials are reportedly calling on civilians to form human chains around some of the key sites that are under threat today.
Meanwhile, another intense wave of strikes was reported on the country's key oil export hub, Kharg Island. A U.S. official telling NBC News the U.S. military struck dozens of military targets on the island last night.
Other parts of the region are now on high alert, with the U.S. Embassy in Bahrain now ordering all of their U.S. government employees to shelter in place. NBC News senior national security correspondent Courtney Kube joins us now. Courtney, it's just been astounding to see the ripple effects across the region. I mean, at this point, President Trump says the U.S. has hit more than 13,000 targets just in Iran since the war began. But take us through today's wave of attacks on these key sites like Kharg Island. I mean, what is Iran doing and saying now?
And keep in mind, the Israelis have hit thousands more. So we are talking about a tremendous number of military strikes that have been undertaken in the first 5.5 weeks of this war. As far as Kharg Island, a U.S. official tells us that the U.S. struck dozens of military targets, primarily on the northern side of the island. But the officials stressed that none of those targets included any of the oil infrastructure. So instead, they were going after things like bunkers and storage facilities for weapons, but they did not hit any of the the gas and oil infrastructure on the island. And that is very critical because, of course, we have heard from President Trump, as you mentioned, he has been threatening that the U.S. will strike Iran's critical infrastructure if, in fact, they don't reopen the Strait of Hormuz by 8 p.m. Eastern time tonight. Now, officials tell us that many of the strikes on Kharg Island are things that were already hit in the recent U.S. military strikes on Kharg Island a little over 2 weeks ago. But they had to restrike some of them. So keep in mind, you have something like a bunker that's buried deep underground and you drop a bomb on it. Well, after days or weeks, you may determine you didn't actually destroy it. They went in and restruck things like that, guys.
And Courtney, let's talk about Lebanon. At least 8 people were reportedly killed there by Israeli strikes. What else is happening as tensions ramp up there?
Yeah, I mean, what's really remarkable is we are also focused on Iran, but the violence in Lebanon has been overwhelming in the last several weeks, with the Israeli military continuing to strike locations there. More than 1 million people have been displaced during this fighting. And again, it is because there is so much attention on what's happening with the war in Iran. It's just not getting a lot of attention here. But I mean, just look at the scope and scale of what we're seeing the Israeli military do there. What's interesting is I mentioned that the IDF has taken a number of strikes in Iran, but in the recent days and weeks, they have been much more focused on Lebanon. So, for instance, the Kharg Island strikes was the U.S. only. There was no Israeli participation in that today.
All right. Courtney Kube reporting live from D.C. Courtney, as always, thank you.
We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.